morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa. My name is Sharmila Curry, and I am delighted to be your worship associate this morning. Normally, if you would like more information about FirstU, it would be available at our welcome table at the back of the pews. However, while the FirstU building is shut down because of the COVID-19 virus, you may instead contact us through email at welcome@firstunitarian.ca. I repeat, for more information, please email us at welcome@firstunitarian.ca. After this service and future services, our normal hospitality hour will be replaced by a virtual getting together. If you would like to join us for hospitality hour on Zoom, please see our website, firstunitarianottawa.ca, or our weekly email newsletter, the EUU, for more information on how to do so. Whatever your heritage, whatever your faith, whomever you love, and however you identify, today you are part of our spiritual community. Welcome. We hope you come back soon.
Thank you, Sharmila. Bonjour. Good morning, everyone. I am the Reverend Patricia Guthmann Haresch, minister of the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa. Although the doors of our building are closed to do our part to stop the spread of disease, we still are a vibrant congregation with open minds, hearts, and spirits. This morning, I welcome you into my home and the homes of our music director, the director of religious exploration, and this morning's worship associate. Thank you for welcoming us into your home. It's a beautiful thing to think that even though we are in separate places, protecting ourselves and others by staying away from a crowd, here we are together online, listening, connecting, and soon singing. I hope this moment finds you well. A few more announcements. While the building is closed, staff are working remotely and are monitoring emails during working hours from home, as they usually would during work hours. Phone calls will be checked less regularly, so emails really are preferred and will get you the quicker response. As we won't be seeing each other in person, it is more important than ever to be signed up for our weekly email newsletter, the EUU. Check our Facebook page and our webpage for notices and updates. Our online calendar is as full as ever. Friday's EUU included information on our Sunday morning forums, Wednesday's mindfulness meditation, how to connect with Friday night trivia, quiz about a youth check-in happening this afternoon, and other virtual check-ins. There was a shout-out seeking volunteers to help with the ministerial search committee or team. Our upcoming Leadership Council meeting will be Monday, June 1st. Also, how you can contribute to the FirstU Telepathon team's fundraiser, right, for multi-faith housing initiative to help those without homes find shelter. And you can find other opportunities to help the community. Also, there's information on how to access a talk occurring tonight brought by the Canadian Unitarian Council. And the talk is from radio and TV commentator Nigan Sinclair, about how non-Indigenous people can be in solidarity with Indigenous people, especially when we are divided. So do check out all this information and more in last Friday's EUU. Also, this coming Sunday, so a week from today, our Zoom hospitality hour at 11:30. In that time, we want to celebrate transitions. If you had a May birthday, if you're graduating from high school or college, graduate school, if you wrote a new book, if you turned 90 this year or 100 this year, if you're retiring, changing careers, any of those transitions, let me know by Saturday night next week at my email, minister@firstunitarianottawa.ca. And during coffee hour, we will celebrate you and share in the fun, right? Also, I wanted to mention that the way we've been communicating very much besides our telephone tree is by using Zoom teleconferencing to connect. We continue to have basic and advanced trainings in Zoom, and you can again find out about that on in our EUU, our weekly newsletter. And do know that you can connect to Zoom even if you don't have a device. You can call in and share in any of these meetings. To schedule a Zoom conference, please email our operations manager at omr@firstunitarian.ca. And if you are having any trouble connecting with Zoom, please let us know. And we have a ready team to help you figure it out. It is good to be with you this morning. Today's topic is about really taking the time to celebrate the mystery and the majesty of earth, not the grand and spectacular displays of nature, but even the tiniest and the teeniest of things. Even molds and slimes are amazing. With this in mind, for our chalice reading, I read Mary Oliver's poem, Messenger, while Will light the chalice. My work is loving the world. Here the sunflowers, there the hummingbird, equal seekers of sweetness. Here the quickening yeast, there the blue plums, here the clam deep in the speckled sand. Are my boots old? Is my coat torn? Am I no longer young and still not half perfect? Let me keep my mind on what matters, which is my work, which is mostly standing still and learning to be astonished. The phoebe, the delphinium, the sheep in the pasture, and the pasture, which is mostly rejoicing, since all ingredients are here, which is gratitude, to be given a mind and a heart and these body clothes, a mouth with which to give a shout of joy, to the moth and the wren, to the sleeping dug-up clam, telling them all, over and over, how it is that we live forever. May it be so.
Chalice, chalice, burning bright, help remind us with your light of how we'd like to live each day with love and truth, helping lead the way.
Hi everyone, it's Neo, your Director of Religious Exploration. Hope everyone is doing fabulous on this Sunday. It's so nice to have spring in the air, and I hope all of you are having lots of opportunity to enjoy it. Today I'm sharing with you a short story called Be Still, Love Nature. It's by Dahlia Jean. take time to visit nature. Be still and you will be wowed. Breathe in and shush your thoughts. Breathe out and release your worries. Be still, spend time in nature where there is no need to hurry. Be still and close your eyes now. The sunlight warms your face. Be still, connect with nature. Slow down and match its pace. Be still and watch the trees move. Leaves glimmer in the breeze. Be still and watch the flowers as they gently greet the bees. Be still and hear the creek now. The water moves and flows. Be still and feel the soft mud. Let it squish in between your toes. Be still and feel the ladybug as she crawls along your skin. Be still and hear the birds up high, hear nature's choir sing. Be still and pick up the stone. It fits nicely in your palm. Be still and look around. Nature gives you a sense of calm. Be still and feel the fallen leaf, nature's fabric at its best. Be still, look closer at it now. Your spirit feels at rest. Be still and smell the clean, crisp air. Stop and sit so quietly. Be still and treasure all of this. Our earth shares beautifully. Be still, spend time in nature. Surely happy you will be. Be still, love nature truly. You'll feel love back. You'll see. So this story, again, is called Be Still, Love Nature, and it was written by Dahlia Jean. Hope all of you enjoyed it. Wishing you a great day. Bye.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning. Praise for them springing fresh from the wood. Sweet the rains will fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light Eden saw play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
This is the time in the service when we are drawn closer to the heart of love at our center and hold those both near and far, loved ones and strangers, in our hearts. These words come from John O'Donohue's Morning Offering. May I have the courage today to live the life that I would love, to postpone my dream no longer, but to do at last what I came here for, and waste my heart on fear no more. Today I place stones in the water that some of you have asked me to place, for those you are thinking of, for joys and sorrows. A stone for those of you who are not able or weren't able to be with a loved one in the hospital, not be together with family at a loved one's bedside because of coronavirus. We hold you in our hearts. A stone for those who must wait to pay their last respects at a memorial gathering, or may only share their grief with family virtually. We hold you in our hearts. For Janet Milroy and her family, whose sister died just this past week in Montreal. Janet, we are thinking of you. We are thinking of one of our first Unitarian past ministers who recently had a stroke and is recovering. We are hoping for the best for him and his family. And a stone for all of you who are celebrating May birthdays. And with the blooming flowers you know what? Even in a time of loss and pandemic, we still bloom, we still have birthdays, flowers come out, and the earth greens. One last stone for a wish when we might be together again in person, for a magnificent but struggling earth. One last stone. May we hold both the joys and the sorrows of this gathered community and this interdependent world of which we live and have our being. Hold all this in our hearts and join together in a moment of silence. Let us be still together.
This morning's reading are words from Reverend Alan Taylor's sermon on pilgrimage. What opportunities to connect with your heart are you waiting for? We may postpone them for months on end, but there's something persistent about the nature of grace. It never goes away. It is always there to be uncovered, and it is, I believe, a significant part of our human journey as we connect with the world authentically, so that grace is unveiled and brought forth. There are so many things in life that if we just give them some attention, reveal far more truth and wisdom than first meets the eye. It is easy to be judgmental, to live our lives in hurried anticipation of achievement after achievement, and thus lose sight of the wisdom, the beauty, and the authentic significance of what is available to us. I believe that if we pace ourselves, pay attention, and intentionally make room in our lives for genuine encounter, we can uncover grace waiting to be manifested, and thereby bless the world.
A number of years ago, I picked up one of my alumni magazines from school, and there was an excerpt from a book with an interesting title. It was called The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating. And it was written by an alum who would have been at my college at the time that I was there. Some years after she left my school and went to a couple of other academic settings and worked for a while, she was on vacation and struck rather suddenly with a neurological disorder. In our time of social isolation, her story came to my mind again. And rather than paraphrasing too much from her story, I'm going to read a bit of her own words because I think her descriptions are just really rich and wonderful. So the author, Elisabeth, is on a glorious vacation when she becomes ill. She writes, "After breakfast, I wander the cobbled village streets. The frost is out of the ground, and the huge bushes of rosemary bask fragrantly in the sun. I take a trail that meanders up the steep wild hill past flocks of sheep. High on an outcrop, I eat a lunch of bread and cheese. Late in the afternoon, along the shore, I find ancient pieces of pottery, their edges smoothed by waves and time. I hear that a virulent flu is sweeping the small town. A few days pass, and then comes a delirious night. My dreams are disturbed by the comings and goings of passenger ferries. Passengers call into the dark, startling me awake. Each time I fall back into sleep, the lake's watery sound pulls at me. Something is wrong. Something is wrong with my body. Nothing feels right. In the morning, I am weak and can't think. Some of my muscles don't work. Time becomes strange. I get lost. The streets go in too many directions. The days drift past in confusion. I pack my suitcase, but for some reason it's impossible to lift. It seems to be stuck to the floor. Somehow I get to the airport. My rare, much-needed vacation had not gone as planned. I'll be okay. I just want to be home. After Elisabeth arrives home, she's not sure how she got home from the airport. Then 10 days of fever with a pounding headache, emergency room visits, lab tests. She's sicker than she ever remembers being. She writes, a few weeks later, resting on the couch, I spiral into a deep darkness, falling farther and farther away until I am impossibly distant. I cannot come back up. I cannot reach my body. Distant sound of an ambulance, siren, distant sound of doctors talking. My eyelids heavy as boulders. I try to open them to a slit for a few seconds, but they close against my will. All I can do is breathe. She becomes bedridden, too sick to even read or watch TV. Imagine how endless each day must have felt. She writes, each morning there was a moment before I had fully awakened, when my mind still groped its clumsy way back to consciousness. My body not yet remembered reality, not yet acknowledged. That moment, was always full of pure, sweet, uncontrollable hope. Hope that my illness had vanished with the night and my health had returned magically with daybreak. But that moment always passed. My eyes opened and reality flooded in. Nothing had changed at all. One side of the room included the most tantalizing of things, a door to the outside world. Was this truly a door that I would someday open and walk through? As if walking out into the world were an ordinary thing to do. I would look at the door until it reminded me of all the places I could not go. Then, exhausted and empty from my audacious adventure, I'd make the slow roll back. Now, to give you some sense of the severity of the author's condition, this is how Elisabeth describes the process of writing this book, The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating. It took her 4 arduous years. She would work slowly, just a few hours a day on her better days. She needed to do her research, reading, editing, and phone calls lying down because she had orthostatic intolerances, which means she couldn't stay upright for very long. Because she had to be lying down and never found a good book holder, she would read by holding a book up over her head with one arm and would switch arms every few minutes. She used an astronaut pen, which sounds pretty cool, which writes upside down. So right should have the book, the pen would write upside down to underline quotes and interesting passages. Within 20 minutes of sitting still at a computer, she experienced sudden, unpredictable drops of blood pressure. So she'd type just 20 minutes at a time. So she would work until her symptoms were intolerable. Before the book, though, I imagine there wasn't much motivation to push herself at reading or watching TV. Being at the computer so intolerable. Her days were endless and monotonous. She needed to be motivated. So what was the motivation, right? One day, a friend brought her a pot of field violets, and she discovered there was a little snail in the pot, right? Under the leaves. Elisabeth became absolutely captivated by the snail's adventures and what it would do as it explored its surroundings. The foreword in my alumni magazine noted, "The snail became an unexpected companion, inspiring her with its peaceful presence and introducing her to another way of life. It lived a pace much different than that of humans." I think we all should get a snail, right, during this time of pandemic. How does a snail become a person's companion? Elisabeth writes of waking during the night and sometimes hearing the comforting sound of the snail's minuscule munching, knowing then that she wasn't alone. She says, "With my flashlight, I'd search until the beam of light found its small shape. If it was eating, I'd peek to see which of the wizened flowers it preferred. It usually stayed within a few feet of the flower pot, which sat on a crate that I was using as a bedside table. Each morning, Elisabeth would awake with despair, realizing that she continued to be ill. But then she would think of the snail. She writes, "I'd look for the tiny earth-colored creature. Usually it was back up in the flower pot asleep, its familiar shape reminding me that I wasn't alone. By day, the strangeness of my situation was sharpest. I was bedbound at a time when my friends and peers were moving forward in their careers and raising families. Yet the snail's daytime sleeping habits gave me a fresh perspective. I was not the only one resting away the days. The snail naturally slept by day, even on the sunniest of afternoons. Its companionship was a comfort to me and buffered my feelings of uselessness. After being transported from the woods, the snail had emerged from its shell into the alien territory of my room, with no clue as to where it was or how it had arrived. The lack of vegetation and the desert-like surroundings must have seemed strange. The snail and I were both living in altered landscapes, not of our choosing. I figured we had a shared sense of loss and displacement. After weeks of around-the-clock companionship, there was no doubt about the relationship. The snail and I were officially cohabitating. I was, I admit, attached. I felt some guilt that it had been taken unasked from its natural habitat. Yet I was not ready to part with it. It was adding a welcome focus to my life, and I couldn't think how I would otherwise have passed the hours. Watching it glide along was a welcome distraction and provided a sort of meditation. My often frantic and frustrated thoughts would gradually settle down to match its calm, smooth pace. So eventually Elisabeth provided her snail companion with a bigger, safer, more natural home. Her caregiver converted an empty rectangular glass aquarium into a roomy terrarium filled with fresh native plants and other materials from the snail's own woods. Elisabeth writes, "Inches from my bed and from each other stood the terrarium and a clock. While life in the terrarium flourished, time ticked away its seconds. But the relationship between time and the snail confused me. The snail would make its way through the terrarium while the hands of the clock hardly moved. So often, I thought, the snail traveled faster than time. Then, absorbed in snail watching, I'd find that time had flown by unnoticed. We each have the same number of minutes and hours to live within the day, yet to me it didn't feel equally doled out. My illness brought me such an abundance of time that time was nearly all I had. My friends had so little time that I often wished I could give them what time I could not use. It was perplexing how, losing my health, I had gained something so coveted, but with so little purpose. As often happens, nature began to be Elisabeth's instructor. This small snail was teaching her the big lessons of life. Elisabeth writes, "As the snail's world grew more familiar, my own human world became less so. My species was so large, so rushed, and so confusing. I found myself preoccupied with the energy level of my human visitors, and I started to observe them in the same detail with which I observed the snail. The random way they moved around the room astonished me. It was as if they didn't know what to do with all their energy. They were so careless with it. There were spontaneous gestures of their arms, the toss of a head, a sudden bend in a full body stretch, as if it were nothing at all. It took time for visitors to settle down. They sat and fidgeted for a while, then slowly relaxed until a calmness finally spread through them. They began to talk about more interesting things, but halfway through a visit, they would notice how little I moved, the stillness of my body, and an odd quietness would come over them. They would worry about wearing me out, but I could also see that I was a reminder of all that they feared: chance, uncertainty, loss, and the sharp edge of mortality. Those of us with illnesses are the holders of the silent fears of those with good health. Eventually, discomfort moved through my visitors, nudging a hand into motion, a foot into tapping. The more apparent my own lack of movement, the greater their need to move. Soon they were off. So the energy of Elisabeth's friends did wear her out, but the snail inspired her. She writes, "Its curiosity and grace pulled me forward into its peaceful and solitary world. Watching it go about its life in the small ecosystem of the terrarium put me at ease," she says. From my recumbent bedside view, the ferns and mosses appeared as miniature forests and fields, and as I watched the snail go about its life, it seemed as if it lived in a timeless world without change. As I read Elisabeth's writing, so much comes to my mind. What if one day I lost my ability to easily read, write, relax before a TV, watch a movie, use a computer, that my days would be filled with pain and confusion? Where would be the hope? How would I fill my time? Would I find purpose and a reason for living? Who would have thought that a flower pot and a snail could be one salvation? We never know where our lessons will come from. Study books and Google all we want. Shakespeare writes that our life finds tongues in trees, books in the running brooks, sermons in stones. All around us, lessons abound. We should all get terrariums. This is Mary Oliver's poem, Breakage. I go down to the edge of the sea. How everything shines in the morning light. The cusp of the whelk, the broken cupboard of the clam, the opened blue mussels. Moon snails, pale pink and barnacle scarred. And nothing at all whole or shut, but tattered, split, dropped by the gulls onto the gray rocks and all the moisture gone. It's like a schoolhouse of little words. First you figure out what each one means by itself. The jingle, the periwinkle, the scallop, full of moonlight. Then you begin slowly to read the whole story. May you make or have time to pay attention, to listen to a snail munching, examine a grasshopper's jaw moving, or the tattered shells. Read the whole story unfolding around us as a world awakens to spring. Rebecca Baggett writes, I want to remind you to look beneath the grass, to note the fragile hieroglyphs of ant, snail, beetle. I want you to understand that you are no more and no less necessary than the brown recluse, the ruby-throated honeybird, the humpback whales, the profligate mimosa. I want to say, like Neruda, that I am waiting for a great and common tenderness, that I still believe we are capable of attention, that anyone who notices the world must want to save it. If you are in a place of despair, May the magnificence of the very grand and the very small around you bring you joy and hope. I will read these words from Victoria Safford, Reverend Victoria Safford. We don't know and never will where the leaf's strength comes from in spring. We don't know and never will entirely where our strength comes from. But we have known despair, some of us, and deep discouragement, some of us, and discord of the mind and heart, or disasters of the body or the spirit, or in both. And we have felt, perhaps, when we least expected to feel anything at all, our own slow blood stir in the vein like maple sap, and something very small and tight within begin to swell and open up, urgent and perceptible at first, then undeniable. Love lives again. That with the dead has been. Did the sun come up this morning? No thanks to us, and all for us. And did the earth awake again, or did it not? So let us go forth with wonder and awe and hope into this day and all the days of our one precious life. May it be so.
This is the time in our service that we usually accept the offering. You may go to our website or contact our finance manager to find out how you might keep up with your pledge or make a donation during these times. We will now share the words for receiving the offering. We give these gifts freely. We receive these gifts gratefully. We dedicate these gifts to the work of our congregation, serving human wholeness, caring for our planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, loving one another. Let us now sing hymn number 1068, Rising Green.
My blood doth rise in the roots of yon oak. Her sap doth run in my veins. Boundless my soul, like the open sky, where the stars forever have lain. Where the stars, where the stars, where the stars forever have lain. My hands hold the wings
These closing words are from John O'Donoghue's Beannacht, which is Old Irish for blessing or benediction. I think I've shared it with you before. And when your eyes freeze behind the gray window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colors, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. When the canvas frays in the boat of thought and a stain of ocean blackens beneath you, may there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so, may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your life. May it be so. Let us sing, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Could vidas quari de justiça, tenurimur, cielum potuum, source de vie, viens vers moi, viens vers moi.
Go in joy, go in peace, go in love. May all be well. May you be well.